The twin suns of Arthur Prime burned across the horizon, turning the sand into rivers of gold. The city below shimmered with strange lights and iron towers that hummed like machines alive. Once this world had been peaceful, now it was only smoke and fire. Ships tore across the sky, burning trails through the clouds. The war between the human coalition and the Arthur Dominion had begun without warning, and no one was ready for how brutal it would become. In the chaos, soldiers and traitors rushed through the streets. Loudspeakers shouted orders in alien tongues. The markets that once sold food and music now traded pain. Inside one such market, deep under the ruins of the old city, stood cages made of dark steel. Behind them were hundreds of captured beings, aliens from different worlds, each one broken, silent, and waiting to be sold. Among them sat a small girl. Her skin had a soft glow, faint like moonlight on water. Her hair, pale gold, fell across her face, hiding her large green eyes. She looked no older than 12 in human years, but her kind aged differently. She was called Lira, the last of her tribe from the planet Enari. Her people were healers, known for their power to calm storms and grow life from stone. Now, she was just another number in a slaver's ledger. The traders laughed as they walked past her cage. "Worthless," one said. "Too fragile. She won't last a day," another spat on the ground. "Humans buy fighters, not weaklings." "No one will take her." The laughter echoed sharp and cruel through the dim hall. Lira didn't cry. She just looked at the light from above, a single ray that fell through the cracks of the ceiling, and whispered something in her language. It was a prayer for the wind to take her home, even if her body stayed behind. Outside, the war thundered closer. The human soldiers had landed near the outer sectors, searching for survivors and prisoners. One of them was Captain Elias Ward, a man who had seen too many worlds burn. His armor was scratched, his face marked by years of battle, but his eyes still carried a quiet strength. He didn't believe in slavery, no matter the species. To him, every life was worth something. Elias moved through the broken streets with his small team, scanning the ruins. The city smelled of metal and dust. He saw bodies of both humans and aliens scattered like forgotten dolls. His communicator crackled with static. "Captain, there's movement under Sector 12, his lieutenant said. "Looks like a market." "Slaver zone." Elias froze. A slaver zone meant living captives. "We're going in," he ordered. They entered through a half-broken gate and found rows of cages. The smell was bitter, fear mixed with old blood. As Elias walked past the prisoners, he could feel their eyes on him. Some begged. Some looked away. But one pair of eyes stopped him cold, bright green, glowing faintly even in the dark. The little alien girl sat alone, knees drawn to her chest. She didn't move as he approached. Her wrists were bruised, her lips dry, but her gaze was calm. Elias crouched beside the bars and spoke softly. "Hey there," he said. "What's your name?" She didn't answer. She just stared as if unsure if he was real. "It's okay," he continued, lowering his weapon. "I'm not like them. I'm here to help." From the shadows, one of the slavers stepped forward, his long coat swaying. "You can't take her," the man sneered. "She's property. Worthless, but still mine." Elias rose to his full height. "You trade in lives," he said quietly. "You've lost your right to speak." The slaver laughed, showing metallic teeth. "You humans act so noble, but you buy just like everyone else. What will you pay for her?" Elias's hand tightened on his weapon. "Not credits," he said. "Freedom." The room went silent. The slavers looked at each other, unsure if they'd heard him right. Then one burst out laughing, a loud, ugly sound. "Freedom? For that thing, no one wants her. Not even her own kind." Elias didn't look away from the girl. She was trembling now, barely breathing. He reached for his communicator. "Command, this is Ward. I'm claiming the Enari child under Protection Code 7. She's coming with me." The laughter turned into shouting. The slavers reached for their guns, but Elias was faster. The first shot rang out like thunder. His soldiers moved in, clearing the room in seconds. Smoke filled the air. When it was over, only silence remained. Elias knelt beside the cage, unlocked it, and held out his hand. "It's all right," he said softly. "You're safe now." The girl hesitated, then placed her small, trembling hand in his. The light from her skin reflected in his visor like starlight. Outside, the sounds of war still rumbled. But in that single moment, something changed. One human had claimed what no one else wanted, not as property, but as a promise. And somewhere deep in the ruins, the wind carried her quiet words again. This time, they didn't sound like a prayer. They sounded like hope. The wind howled through the broken streets of Arthon Prime as Captain Elias Ward carried the small alien girl through the smoke. His armor was heavy, but the child in his arms weighed almost nothing. Her body was cold, her breathing slow and shallow. The sunlight above flickered through rising dust, and every step echoed through the ruins. "Captain, extraction point's 2 clicks north," his lieutenant called. "We need to move before enemy reinforcements arrive." Elias nodded, adjusting the child's blanket. "We move fast," he said. "She's hurt." The squad advanced through the alleyways, weapons ready, scanning every corner. The war had turned the city into a graveyard of machines and metal bones. Each shadow could hide a sniper or a drone. Yet even among all that danger, Elias couldn't stop glancing at the small face resting against his chest. Her skin shimmered faintly, like light trapped beneath glass. When they reached the extraction zone, a dropship hovered above the rubble, engines humming. Soldiers rushed to cover their escape, while Elias climbed aboard with the girl still in his arms. The pilot looked back in surprise. "Sir, what is that?" Elias simply said, "Someone worth saving." Inside the ship, medics hurried over. They placed the girl on a table and scanned her with a medical light. The monitor flickered with unreadable data. "Her physiology's strange," one medic whispered. "Not matching any known species in our files." "She's Enari," Elias said quietly. "Last of her kind, maybe." The medic looked at him with wide eyes. "Enari, the Life Weavers? I thought they were myths." Elias shook his head. "Not myths, just forgotten." As the dropship lifted into the clouds, Lira opened her eyes slowly. The green light in them shimmered like tiny stars. She looked around, frightened by the sound of engines and human voices. Elias stepped closer and knelt beside her. "You're safe," he said softly. "No one will hurt you here." She blinked at him, struggling to understand. Then in a faint voice, she whispered, "Why?" He smiled faintly. "Because you deserve a chance to live." The flight back to the human outpost took hours. By the time they landed, night had fallen across the desert world. The stars looked sharp and endless above. The soldiers went to rest, but Elias stayed with the girl in the medical bay. She sat quietly, wrapped in a soft blanket, watching the strange machines hum around her. He offered her water. She took it carefully, her fingers shaking. After a moment, she spoke again, her voice small. "They called me broken." Elias looked at her. "You're not broken." "They said my gift was gone," she whispered. "My people could heal. We could make dead soil live again. But after the war came, I couldn't do it anymore." Elias placed a hand on the edge of her bed. "You've been through too much. Maybe it'll come back when you're safe." She shook her head slowly. "No one's safe now." Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, not from the sky, but from the march of war machines. The human base trembled as enemy artillery began to fire again. Red lights flashed across the control room. "Captain Ward to command deck," came the radio call. "We've got incoming." Elias turned to Lira. "Stay here. Don't move. I'll be back." Her eyes followed him as he ran out, and for a moment, she whispered something again in her language. Words that made the lights in the room flicker faintly, like the air itself was listening. Elias reached the command deck. Screens glowed red with enemy positions. The officer on duty pointed at the map. "They're targeting our evac route, sir. If they breach the shield wall, we're done." Elias frowned. "We don't have time to relocate. We need that barrier up." The officer hesitated. "We can't. The power grid's unstable." Before Elias could answer, the lights dimmed again, just for a second, and then stabilized. The monitors flickered back to green. "What the hell?" someone muttered. Elias stared at the readings. Power flow had suddenly increased, almost doubling. Back in the med bay, Lira sat quietly, her small hands glowing faintly over the blanket. Her eyes were half closed and a low hum filled the air. The broken generator beside her, which had been dead for days, flickered to life. The machines around her started to stabilize. She was restoring energy, somehow, without touching anything. When Elias returned, he saw her sitting there, the glow fading slowly from her skin. "Lira," he said carefully, "what did you do?" She looked at him, confused. "The walls!" "They were crying," she said softly. "I told them to be strong." Elias stared for a long moment. "You spoke to the machines?" She nodded. "Everything listens if you are gentle." He sat beside her, the weight of the war pressing heavy in his chest. The child who had been called worthless, powerless, was now saving lives without even trying. There was something deeper about her, something the slavers had never understood. Outside, the storm of battle calmed for a while. The human base stood stronger than before, lights glowing bright through the night. Lira looked at Elias with tired eyes. "Will they come for me again?" He hesitated. "They might, but they'll have to go through me first." She didn't know what those words meant, but she smiled faintly, and for the first time since he found her, her expression softened. As the night grew silent, Elias sat watching the stars beyond the steel windows. He didn't know what fate had planned for the strange child he'd rescued, but something told him. She wasn't just a survivor. She was the beginning of something far greater, and somewhere far above, unseen ships were already turning toward their position, drawn by a signal no human could hear. Morning came quietly over the war-torn outpost. The red sky of Arthur Prime glowed through the haze, casting long shadows across the camp. Soldiers moved between tents, repairing armor and checking weapons. But everyone was talking about the same thing, the strange pulse that had saved the base last night. No one could explain it. The generators had been failing for hours, then suddenly recharged as if struck by lightning. The engineers said it was impossible. But Elias knew it wasn't. He had seen the faint glow in Lira's hands. He had heard the hum in the air. Now, as he entered the medical tent, he found her sitting on the edge of the bed, quietly watching the sunlight spill through the open flap. The soft rays made her golden hair shine like threads of fire. "Good morning," Elias said. She looked up at him and smiled faintly. "The walls stopped crying," she said. Elias tilted his head. "The walls?" She pointed to the machines humming around her. "They are calm now. They sleep." He smiled a little. Her words were strange, but he could feel what she meant. The base felt alive again, stable. He sat down beside her. "You did that, didn't you?" She looked down, almost shy. It hurt before. Everything screamed. "I wanted it to stop." Elias nodded slowly. "You helped everyone. You saved us." Her small fingers played with the edge of her blanket. "They will be angry," she whispered. "They do not like when I glow." Before Elias could answer, the tent's curtain opened, and a tall officer stepped in. His armor was polished, his face sharp. "Commander Rane, Elias's superior." "Captain Ward," Rane said coldly. "I need a word. Outside." Elias stood, giving Lira a calm look before following him out into the open air. Rane didn't waste time. "We received a report from Central Command," he said. "That child you brought in, she's not supposed to be here. She's classified as non-human biological property." Elias frowned. "She's not property. She's a person." Rainey's eyes narrowed. "I don't care what you think." "Orders are clear. She'll be transferred to Research Division immediately." Elias's jaw tightened. "Research Division? You mean the labs? They'll dissect her." "That's not your concern," Rane said sharply. "Your job was to rescue human captives, not alien children. You've already stretched protocol." Elias took a slow breath. "If she can heal machines, imagine what else she can do. She could end this war. She could save lives." Rainey stepped closer, his voice lowering. "Or she could destroy them. We don't understand her. You think you're protecting her, but you might be protecting a weapon." Elias didn't respond. His silence was answer enough. Rainey sighed and tapped his wrist communicator. "Transfer team arrives in 1 hour. I expect no interference." He turned and walked away, leaving Elias staring at the ground, anger burning behind his calm expression. Inside the tent, Lira had been listening. Her hearing was sharper than any human's. She sat very still, eyes wide. She didn't understand all their words, but she knew enough. They wanted to take her away. When Elias came back inside, she looked up at him, fear glowing in her eyes. "You will send me away?" she asked softly. Elias stopped at the door. "No," he said after a moment. "Not if I can stop it," she stared at him. "They said I am dangerous." He crouched beside her, his voice calm. "Sometimes people fear what they don't understand. But I've seen what you are, Lira. You're not dangerous. You're different. And that's not a bad thing." Her hands trembled. "They will come." "Yes," he said quietly. "They will." For a while, neither spoke. The sound of soldiers outside filled the silence. Marching boots, clanging tools, radio chatter. Then Elias made a decision. He went to the supply tent and gathered gear, a small pulse rifle, energy cells, and a field cloak. His lieutenant Mason watched him with worry. "You're really going to do this, sir?" Elias met his eyes. "She's a child, Mason. They'll tear her apart." "I won't let that happen." Mason hesitated, then handed him a data pad. "If you go, the base will mark you as rogue." "I'll take that risk," Elias said. He returned to the med tent. Lira sat waiting, clutching a piece of her blanket like a lifeline. He knelt beside her and whispered, "We're leaving." She looked at him uncertain. "Leaving?" He nodded. "Far from here. Somewhere safe." The air outside grew heavy as storm clouds gathered. When the transfer team's ship landed at the edge of the camp, Elias and Lira slipped out through the maintenance tunnels beneath the old storage bay. The passages were dark and damp, filled with dripping water and echoes of distant explosions. Lira held Elias's hand tightly as they moved through the tunnels. Her small steps made no sound. "Are we bad now?" she asked softly. Elias looked down at her. "No, sometimes doing the right thing looks wrong to others." When they finally emerged beyond the camp's perimeter, they could see the wasteland stretching endlessly before them, broken towers, burning sky, and far in the distance, the shadows of enemy ships moving through the clouds. Lira stopped and turned to him. "You could go. You could stay safe?" He shook his head. "Not without you." The girl's green eyes shimmered again, brighter than before. "You are strange," she said quietly. "Humans are strange." He smiled a little. "You'll get used to us." As they started across the wasteland, thunder rolled again, but not from the sky. Distant engines roared behind them. Search drones had already picked up their trail. Elias looked back once, his grip on his weapon tightening. The human base had become his enemy now, and the little girl beside him, the one everyone had called worthless, was now the most wanted being on the planet. And as they ran into the red horizon, the ground beneath them began to hum as if something ancient was waking from the depths of Arthan Prime itself. The red sun rose again over Arthan Prime, spreading its heat across the endless desert. Captain Elias Ward and the small alien girl, Lira, walked through the dust and silence. The wind blew against them, carrying the faint smell of ash and metal. Behind them, the war was still roaring, but far ahead, the horizon promised something quieter, or so Elias hoped. They had been walking for hours. The ground cracked under their boots. Strange shapes of broken machines lay half buried in the sand, old war drones twisted like the bones of giants. Lira moved slowly, her small feet barely leaving prints. She didn't complain, not once. Her eyes kept scanning the ground as if she could hear something Elias could not. "You should rest," Elias said, stopping near the wreck of a transport ship. She shook her head gently. "The earth is crying here," she said softly. "It hurts," Elias frowned. "Crying?" She nodded. "Something below is still alive." He didn't understand her words, but he trusted her. Ever since they'd escaped the base, strange things had been happening around her. The air seemed warmer near her. The machines hummed faintly when she passed. And once, when their water filter broke, she touched it, and it worked again. They hid inside the wreck for the night. Elias built a small fire from old cables and dry sandweed. The orange glow flickered across the walls, painting shadows like ghosts. Lira sat close, her knees drawn up to her chest. "Elias," she said quietly. "Yes? Why do humans fight so much?" He looked at the fire for a moment. "Because sometimes we forget how to listen. We want to control everything, even when we don't understand it." She tilted her head. "That is sad," he nodded. "It is." Outside, the night wind howled again, shaking loose pieces of metal. Elias leaned back against the wall and closed his eyes for a moment. But his rest didn't last. A sound in the distance, a low, mechanical growl, made him reach for his rifle. He peeked through a crack. Far away, lights were moving, small and blue, cutting through the darkness. Search drones. They were hunting them again. Elias turned to Lira. "We have to move." She didn't argue. She stood, wrapping her small blanket around her shoulders. Together, they left the wreck and started moving through the dunes under the stars. The sand glowed faintly, almost silver under the twin moons. As they walked, Elias noticed something strange. The ground below them started to pulse with soft light. Blue veins shimmered through the sand. Lira stopped suddenly and placed her hand on the ground. "It's here," she whispered. Before Elias could ask what she meant, the sand beneath them shifted. A deep vibration spread through the earth, and then the ground cracked open, not violently, but smoothly, like a door sliding apart. Below was a faint blue glow, a tunnel of light. Elias raised his weapon in alarm. "What is that?" Lira looked up at him. "Home." She stepped forward carefully, and the glow responded, brightening where her feet touched. Elias hesitated only a moment before following her inside. The tunnel was smooth, not natural, built by someone or something long ago. Strange markings ran along the walls, symbols that looked like flowing rivers frozen in stone. As they walked deeper, Elias could hear faint whispers, not words, but echoes, like voices calling from water. The air was cooler here, softer. Lira stopped at a wide chamber where light bloomed from a crystal suspended in mid-air. It pulsed slowly like a heartbeat. She looked up at it with tears in her eyes. "This is the Heart of Enari," she said. "My people made it long ago. It feeds life into the world. But when war came, it broke." Elias looked around, awed. "You mean this? Powers the planet?" She nodded. "It listens to us. We heal it with song, but my voice is small now." She approached the glowing crystal and placed both hands on it. For a moment, the light dimmed, then began to flicker wildly. The air filled with a soft hum that grew louder and louder. Elias took a step forward. "Lira, stop, you'll hurt yourself." But she didn't. Her eyes glowed brighter, her hair floating as if caught in invisible wind. The crystal responded, shining with blinding light. The whole chamber trembled. Then slowly, the light stabilized, warm, golden, alive. Lira staggered, almost falling, but Elias caught her. She was trembling, her breath fast. "You did it," he said quietly. She looked at the crystal weakly. "Only a little. It needs all of us, but I am the last." He looked at her in silence, realizing just how much was hidden behind those young eyes. She wasn't just a child. She carried the power of a whole race, alone. Before he could speak, his communicator crackled suddenly. "Captain Ward," came a voice filled with static. "This is Commander Rane. You are under arrest. We have your signal. Stand down." Elias cursed under his breath. They had tracked him again, maybe through his armor, maybe through her energy pulse. He turned off the device and looked at Lira. "We have to go deeper," he said. But Lira shook her head. "No more running," she whispered. "They must see." Her words puzzled him, but before he could ask, the tunnel walls began to vibrate. The light from the Heart of Enari spread outward, traveling through the stone like veins of fire. It climbed upward, reaching the surface far above. Miles away, in the night sky, human ships and alien fleets paused as a golden glow erupted from the ground below, a pulse of living energy rising into the air. It spread like dawn, cutting through the clouds and dust. Elias stood there, holding Lira as she looked up. "They will come," she whispered again. "Not just humans, all of them." And as the glow of the Enari heart filled the ancient chamber, Elias finally understood. This wasn't just about saving one child. It was about awakening something that had been sleeping for centuries, something that might end the war, or destroy everything. The golden light of the Heart of Enari reached the sky, a bright pillar that pierced the clouds and made the stars flicker. From orbit, ships of both the Human Coalition and the Arthan Dominion could see it. Every commander wanted to know what had happened on the surface. Every sensor locked on the same signal, a pulse of living energy, unlike anything seen before. Far below, Captain Elias Ward stood with Lira in the glowing chamber. The floor trembled as energy flowed through the walls like liquid light. He could feel the warmth on his skin, hear the hum deep inside his bones. Lira stood before the floating crystal, her small body surrounded by a soft halo of light. Her eyes glowed brighter with every heartbeat. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "Lira, you have to stop. They'll come here." She looked up at him, her voice calm and distant. "I can't stop it." The heart woke up. It calls to everyone. It remembers. He knelt beside her, trying to steady her trembling hands. "If it keeps going, they'll all come. Soldiers, slavers, everyone." "They'll destroy it." She shook her head softly. "If they destroy it, the planet dies. All life here will end." Elias's communicator crackled to life again. "Captain Ward, this is Commander Rene. We have your location." "Do not resist. The child will be secured." Elias crushed the device against the floor. "Not this time," he muttered. Above them, the sound of engines echoed through the tunnels, heavy transports landing, soldiers shouting orders, metal boots striking stone. The enemy had arrived. The narrow passages filled with dust and echoes of movement. Both humans and alien troops were closing in, drawn by the same pulse of power. Elias looked around for a way out. "Lira, there's another path?" She pointed toward a dark passage that curved deeper into the rock. "There is a door below," she said softly. "But it only opens to truth." He frowned. "What does that mean?" Her gaze met his. "You will see." They hurried down the tunnel, the hum of the heart fading behind them, but the walls still glowing faintly. The deeper they went, the quieter it became, until all Elias could hear was their breathing and the distant thunder of explosions far above. At the end of the tunnel stood a massive door made of black stone, smooth and seamless. Symbols of light pulsed across its surface like veins. Lira walked forward and placed her hand on it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the symbols rearranged themselves, forming an image, a vision of her people standing under a golden sky. They sang in harmony, hands touching the earth. But then the image turned dark, fire, chains, ships, and silence. Elias felt his heart tighten. "That's what happened to you," he said quietly. Lira nodded. "They took our gift. They made us tools. Now the heart remembers." The door opened slowly with a deep, low sound. Beyond it was a great hall filled with ancient pillars and a circular platform in the center. The floor shimmered like glass. Lira stepped forward, but before she could speak, a loud metallic echo filled the air. Soldiers entering from the upper tunnel. Lights flashed across the walls. Elias turned, raising his weapon. Commander Rene's voice rang out through a loudspeaker. "Elias Ward, you are charged with treason and harboring alien property. Step away from the creature," Elias shouted back. "She's not property. She's the key to saving this world." Rene's tone was cold. "That thing is a threat to every living being. If you won't stand down, we'll take her by force." Elias moved in front of Lira, shielding her. "You'll have to go through me." Rene's soldiers aimed their rifles. Lira looked at Elias, her small voice trembling. "They don't hear the song. They only hear fear." He didn't take his eyes off the soldiers. "Then make them hear something else." She stepped out from behind him slowly, her glow brightening again. The soldiers hesitated. Some lowered their weapons for a moment, confused by the light spreading around her. It wasn't blinding, it was soft, like morning sunlight through mist. Then one soldier panicked and fired. The shot hit the floor beside her, sending sparks into the air. Elias reacted instantly, returning fire to cover her. Chaos broke out. Shouting, smoke, and flashing lights filled the chamber. Lira fell to her knees, covering her ears. The noise hurt her. She wasn't made for violence, but then something deep inside her broke open. Her eyes went pure white, and a wave of golden energy burst out from her body. It rolled across the chamber like a tide, pushing soldiers back and silencing the weapons. When the light faded, no one was hurt, but every gun was melted, every machine dead. The humans lay stunned on the ground, their armor flickering with static. Rane staggered to his feet. What did she do?" he whispered. Elias looked at Lira, who was trembling, tears running down her glowing face. "She stopped the war," he said softly. Rane stared at the child, then back at Elias. "You don't understand. That kind of power can't be allowed to live." He drew his pistol, but before he could aim, the floor beneath him cracked. A line of golden light split the ground, and a strong wind roared through the chamber. The walls themselves began to hum, alive with Lira's energy. Elias shouted over the noise, "Lira! Stop! You'll destroy yourself!" She shook her head, her voice barely audible. "I can't stop it. It's not me anymore. The heart is awake." Above them, the ceiling began to glow, the same light spreading outward, connecting to the surface. The entire planet seemed to be responding to her call. Elias ran to her, kneeling beside her trembling form. "Listen to me," he said. "You're not alone. You're still you. Control it." Her eyes focused on him. "I don't know how." "Then let me help," he said. He placed his hands over hers, grounding her energy with his touch. Slowly, the violent hum began to soften. The glow dimmed, returning to that soft, living light once more. The planet seemed to breathe again. Commander Rane lowered his weapon slowly, awe filling his face. "What is she?" Elias looked up at him, his voice calm but firm. "She's hope." The chamber of the heart was quiet now. The golden glow had softened, filling the air with warmth like sunrise after a long night. Dust floated gently in the light. The soldiers who had come to capture Lira were silent, their weapons melted, their fear replaced by something they couldn't name: awe. Captain Elias Ward still held Lira's hands in his. Her glow was dim now, her face pale and tired. She blinked slowly, her voice a whisper. "Is it over?" Elias looked around. "For now," he said softly. "You stopped the fighting." Commander Rane stood nearby, staring at the glowing walls. His voice was unsteady. "What have we done?" "The planet itself is alive." Elias helped Lira sit up. "She didn't start this war," he said quietly. "But she might be the one who ends it." Above them, distant thunder rolled, not from battle but from the shifting sky. The golden light from the Heart of Enari was spreading across Arthan Prime. The burned deserts were beginning to shimmer with color. Cracked soil turned dark and moist. Tiny green plants began to sprout through the dust. The soldiers stepped back, speechless, as the world changed before their eyes. Lira watched it all with tears in her eyes. "It remembers us," she whispered. "The planet remembers the Enari." Rane approached cautiously. "If this power spreads beyond this world, it could change everything. It could destroy or save entire systems." Elias stood between him and the girl. "Then maybe it's time we stopped destroying and started saving." Rane looked at him for a long moment, then holstered his weapon. "Command won't understand this," he said. "They'll call it a threat." Elias's eyes were firm. "Then we'll make them see it's not." For a while, no one spoke. The soldiers helped each other up, looking around at the living light that now pulsed through the ancient stone. The heart had become calm, breathing like something alive but peaceful. Lira stood on unsteady legs, looking at Elias. "It's not finished," she said softly. "The heart is waking the others. They are far away." "The others?" he asked. She nodded. "Other hearts. Other worlds that were broken. My people built many before they fell." Elias frowned slightly. "You mean there are more like this?" "Yes," she said. "But they are sleeping. If they wake too fast, the stars will shake." Rane turned to his soldiers. "Get a signal to orbit. Tell command to stand down all strikes. The energy surge is not a weapon, it's a living system. We're standing by for new orders." The soldiers saluted weakly, still shaken by what they'd seen. Elias walked with Lira to the platform where the crystal floated. She reached out and touched it one last time. The golden light pulsed once, like a heartbeat, and then faded into a soft blue glow. "It's resting again," she said. Safe now, he smiled faintly. You did good, Lira. She looked up at him, her green eyes shining. I didn't do it alone. He knelt beside her. You never have to be alone again. The child smiled, small and tired, then leaned against him. He wrapped his arm around her gently as the chamber filled with the sound of wind moving through the tunnels. Calm, like a song returning home. Hours passed before the light outside began to fade into twilight. The human forces withdrew, their orders uncertain. The Arthan ships that had been ready to attack stopped mid-flight when they saw the transformation below. The message was spreading, Arthan Prime lives. The heart has awakened. In the days that followed, reports filled the communication lines. The radiation storms were disappearing. The deserts were turning green again. The war paused, not through treaties or threats, but because everyone was watching something greater than war itself. For the first time in years, peace didn't come from fear. It came from wonder. Elias and Lira were taken back to the surface by shuttle. The soldiers saluted them both as they passed, not because of rank, but respect. Commander Rane stood waiting near the landing pad. His expression was different now, not cold, but thoughtful. You've changed everything, Captain, he said. Command wants answers. They're calling what happened here a miracle. Elias smiled faintly. Call it whatever you want. Just don't call her a weapon. Rane nodded slowly. I won't. He looked at Lira. What will you do now, child? She looked at the horizon where golden light met the clouds. Listen, she said simply. The stars are singing again. Elias glanced at her, half smiling. You understand them, don't you? She nodded. They remember kindness. They always do. Rane sighed quietly. Maybe we all need to remember that. As the night settled in, the two suns of Arthan Prime sank below the horizon, painting the sky with deep red and gold. Elias and Lira stood at the edge of the cliff, watching the wind move across the green fields that were once dead. Elias spoke softly. You changed this world, Lira. She looked up at him. No, she said. You did. You saw me when no one else would. For a moment, silence filled the air. Not empty silence, but peaceful, alive. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. Then maybe this is where it starts. Not just for this planet, but for everyone. The wind lifted her golden hair and she smiled, a quiet, shining smile that carried across the fields. Above them, the stars pulsed softly as if answering her, and somewhere, deep in the heart of the universe, another long, silent heart began to glow. The war was over. Hope had finally begun.